The sea is timeless. It whispers secrets. It hides mysteries. It remembers every story ever told. Along the shore of an ancient land, waves touched golden sand, and people lived by the rhythm of the tides. In this kingdom by the sea, there ruled a queen unlike any other. Wise, gentle, and strong, her heart belonged to her people. Her eyes often wandered to the horizon, where sky met water, as if searching for an answer just out of reach. She prayed not for herself, but for safety, for harvests, for calm waters, for the lives of those she guided. The ocean listened. The god of the sea listened. From his vast throne beneath the waves, Poseidon's gaze lingered. He watched a mortal queen whose spirit glowed brighter than pearls, stronger than stone, more graceful than the tide. Stories tell of kings who sought glory, of warriors who sought conquest. But this queen sought harmony instead. Her reign was a balance, fragile yet beautiful, and the sea could not turn away from such a flame. Tonight, we tell her story, a story of devotion, of choices, of the meeting between a god and a mortal queen. The kingdom rose where mountains met the sea. Its walls stood firm, its harbors alive with sails and song. People worked the fields, tended olive groves, and cast nets into waters rich with silver fish. Children played in the streets, chasing each other through markets filled with spice, honey, and woven cloth. Merchants called out with pride, offering goods from distant lands carried over restless waves. At the center stood a palace of white stone, shining like a beacon when dawn touched its towers. And within those halls lived the queen, whose voice was calm, whose wisdom bound the kingdom together. She ruled not with fear, but with fairness. Her laws were steady, her compassion a lantern in dark times. The people called her Mother of the Shore, for she cared as deeply as the sea cared for the tide. She rose each morning to walk the ramparts, greeting farmers, sailors, and children alike with gentle words. Her hair caught the sun like threads of gold, yet she wore no crown of vanity, only duty upon her brow. At night, she prayed at the temple by the cliff, where waves sang and wind carried the salt of the deep. She asked not for riches, nor for conquests, but for peace, for rain in season, for safety of every ship. The sea was the lifeblood of her people. Without it, their markets emptied, their songs grew silent. And so she honored it. Festivals were held where lanterns floated across the waters like stars. Fishermen offered the first catch of the season, setting baskets of shining fish upon the waves. Children released flower garlands, hoping the sea would bless their families with health and fortune. The queen herself poured libations of wine, bowing her head to the unseen god beneath the waves. She spoke words of gratitude, and though she heard no answer, she felt the water's calm embrace. Travelers spoke of other rulers who demanded monuments, who built statues to themselves. But this queen asked only that her people live well, that fields remain fertile, that homes stay safe. Her council admired her restraint, her humility, her wisdom that looked beyond her own lifetime. Yet there was more to her than duty. Her heart carried a secret longing that none could name. For often she lingered by the shore, her feet brushing foam, her gaze lost in the endless horizon. She listened to the waves as if they carried a voice, a language older than memory itself. At times she smiled, as though answering a call no one else could hear. At times her eyes grew distant, filled with questions she dared not speak aloud. The people whispered that the sea loved her, that it shielded her walls from storms and famine. No fisherman drowned near her harbor. No ship vanished in whirlpools or broke upon reefs. Other coasts feared the sea's anger, yet here the waves curled gentle, as if bowing to her grace. Even the old priests took notice, saying omens stirred, that the sea itself watched her steps. But the queen spoke nothing of this. She carried her duties as though the sea's favor was coincidence. Still, when the moon rose full, she walked alone to the water's edge, her reflection meeting hers. The waves stretched out to her feet, retreating, returning, like a heartbeat pulsing in time. She would close her eyes, whisper to the tide, not knowing her words reached ears beneath the deep. For in palaces unseen, where coral towers rose and dolphins danced, Poseidon himself was listening. The god of the sea, keeper of storms, had turned his gaze upon the mortal queen of the shore. He who commanded the fury of oceans found himself moved not by conquest, but by quiet devotion. And so began a tale not of kingdoms rising by sword, but of a bond born between duty and eternity. Beneath the endless waves, where sunlight fades into twilight, Poseidon sat upon his throne of coral and pearl. His hall stretched vast, with pillars carved of seashell, guarded by dolphins and lit by glowing sea fire. From there he ruled the tides, commanding storms, guiding currents, and watching all that lived upon the waters. Yet his eyes often turned upward, past the surface, past the foam, to the kingdom that lined the shore. For he had seen mortals rise and fall, kingdoms built and broken, their names lost to shifting sands. Kings boasted, conquerors bled, temples crumbled, yet the sea endured, eternal, patient, and untamed. But this queen was different. Her prayers were not cries of greed, but words woven with respect. She did not demand treasures, nor bargain for war, but offered gratitude for the gifts already given. And so Poseidon lingered, listening, curious, stirred by a voice that rose not in fear, but in love. The sea god had watched mortals before, admired their courage, pitied their fragility, yet none captured his gaze. This queen shone brighter than others, not with power, but with a spirit steadfast as the tide. Her devotion to her people, her harmony with the sea, drew him like a current pulling a drifting ship. When storms gathered, he stilled them. When waves threatened, he softened them, unseen yet deliberate in care. Dolphins swam near her harbor, carrying playfulness as signs of his unseen favor to her realm. At night, he would rise closer to the surface, hidden beneath the shimmer of moonlit waves. He watched her walking the cliffs, her golden hair touched by starlight, her voice a whisper to the tide. She was mortal, fragile, bound by years that slipped like sand, yet her presence burned in eternity's gaze. Poseidon, who commanded oceans, found himself listening, as if she were the one who ruled the sea. His heart, ancient as the first waves, stirred with something he had long thought buried in his depths. It was not conquest, nor desire for dominion, but an echo of longing he could not deny. For gods are mighty, yet even gods seek connection, a soul that sees them beyond power or fear. In his palace, whispers spread. Nereids, his daughters, saw his gaze wandering toward the mortal queen. Some smiled, curious, others feared, for they knew when gods loved mortals, fates often tangled like nets. But Poseidon spoke little, keeping his thoughts hidden, carrying her image as quietly as the tide itself. He remembered her prayers, her offerings, her gentle bow to the sea as if greeting an equal. Not once had she sought to bind the ocean, only to live beside it in reverence and peace. This humility struck him, for he had known mortals who cursed the sea for every storm or loss. Yet she thanked it even in hardship, teaching her people that the sea was not enemy, but kin. Such wisdom resonated, for Poseidon himself was not merely fury, but balance, giver as well as taker. Her voice carried across the waters, not with demand, but with trust. And he cherished that sound. He knew he could remain hidden forever, blessing her silently, guarding her realm without her knowledge. But the thought of never speaking, never letting her know he listened, weighed heavier than waves of grief. He longed to step upon the shore, to reveal himself not as a god to be feared, but as a presence she already knew in heart, the one she had been whispering to all along. And so Poseidon watched, waiting, torn between eternity's caution and the pull of a mortal queen's spirit. The sea around her kingdom shimmered with his unseen care, a veil of protection woven tide by tide. Yet deep within, the god knew this could not remain hidden forever, for the ocean itself cannot be silenced. And thus, the story turned, as the sea god's watchful eye lingered longer on the queen by the shore. It began with small signs, gentle and strange, that stirred whispers among the people who lived by the shore. Fishermen returned from storms untouched, their nets full, their sails carrying them home with impossible ease. They spoke of dolphins leaping ahead of their boats, guiding them like companions across the restless sea. At night, shells of rare beauty washed upon the sand, gleaming with colors no hand had painted. The queen found one at dawn, placed neatly by the tide, as if delivered by unseen hands. She lifted it, listening, and thought she heard a hum, faint yet steady, like the ocean's breath. Each day brought another omen. Waves calmed at her approach, as if bowing, parting to let her pass. Children waded in shallow waters and found pearls hidden in shells, gifts too many to be chance. The people began to murmur. Some said the gods were pleased, others that the queen had a secret. In the market square, old sailors swore that the sea itself bent its will to guard her rule. The priests of the temple studied the tides, reading patterns that hinted at divine favor near. They declared her kingdom blessed, but warned that gifts from gods were never without deeper meaning. The queen listened with quiet grace, offering thanks. Yet her heart carried questions she did not reveal. She wondered if her prayers had been answered, or if the ocean itself sought to speak with her. Alone by the shore, she traced circles in the sand, eyes on the horizon, mind restless with wonder. The waves seemed alive, rushing closer when she lingered, retreating when she stepped away from the foam. One evening, as the moon rose bright, she saw lanterns flicker across the water like living stars. No hand had set them afloat, yet they drifted toward her, glowing softly, carried by a gentle tide. She reached for one, its flame steady though no wax burned, and in its glow she felt watched. The air thickened with salt and song, though no voice spoke, only the rhythm of waves upon rock. Her heart quickened, torn between fear and awe, as though she stood on the edge of a great truth. That night, she dreamt of oceans deep, of coral halls, of eyes vast and blue, watching her with care. She woke with sand in her hands, though she had not left her chamber, as if the dream were real. The people grew bold in their gossip, claiming the queen was chosen, that the sea had claimed her heart. Mothers told children tales that their ruler was loved by the ocean, and so their homes would never drown. Merchants raised prayers of thanks, knowing their voyages were safer than any sailor could dream. But the queen, though honored, felt the weight of mystery pressing heavier with each passing tide. She stood by the temple steps, gazing at the waves, longing to know if it was blessing or destiny. Each sign brought her closer to an answer, but none revealed the hand behind the ocean's favor. And still she walked the shore, her robes brushing the foam, her voice whispering to the unseen sea. Unknown to her, Poseidon lingered near, shaping each omen with care, watching her wonder with silent devotion. He sent the shells, the pearls, the lanterns, each a fragment of his presence carried upon the tide. But he did not yet speak, for the moment had not come, and gods, like oceans, keep their patience. So the kingdom thrived beneath omens of grace, while the queen stood between wonder and uncertainty. And in the hush of the waves, a story gathered strength, waiting for the day when the sea would answer. In the quiet hours before dawn, the queen often walked alone, her footsteps tracing the edge of the shore. The sea breeze tugged at her cloak, carrying the scent of salt and the murmur of waves like whispered secrets. She paused often, eyes fixed on the horizon, as though seeking answers beyond the reach of mortal sight. Her counselors wondered why she lingered, but none dared to question the solitude she held so dearly. For in those moments, she allowed herself to set aside crown and duty, becoming simply a woman by the sea. Her heart carried a wonder unspoken, a longing not for power, but for the mysteries hidden beneath the tide. She remembered childhood days when she first asked her nurse if the ocean was alive, if it could hear. The answer had been laughter. Yet even then, she felt the water listening, a presence vast and watchful. Now, as queen, she still felt it, stronger than ever, as if the sea itself leaned closer when she prayed. Each morning she stood upon the cliffs, offering thanks not only with words, but with silence filled with awe. And in silence, she felt the pull of something beyond duty, beyond devotion, something that touched her soul. She dreamed of swimming far beyond the horizon, of walking coral halls, of hearing the language of whales. Though bound to her people, though chained by crown, she could not still the tide that rose within her. At council, she spoke wisely, weighing disputes, guiding her realm with calm hands and patient heart. Yet behind her eyes flickered a flame, a yearning her ministers could not name, though they sensed its weight. She found herself writing verses in secret, words that spoke of waves, of unseen eyes, of eternal longing. The parchment filled with ocean songs, confessions she dared not share, for they seemed both prayer and prophecy. Sometimes she stood ankle-deep in the surf, robes soaked, listening as though the sea whispered directly to her. She closed her eyes and felt the rhythm of the tide echo the rhythm of her heart, steady, unbroken. Her hand often brushed the shell left by the tide, the one she found glowing faintly beneath the moon. To her, it was not trinket, but message, though its meaning remained hidden, veiled in mystery. She whispered to it in moments of solitude, asking questions she never spoke aloud to any soul. Do you hear me? Do you see me? Am I alone when I stand before your endless waters? The waves answered only with their eternal rise and fall. Yet she felt less alone when they embraced her feet. She began to wonder if she was chosen, not as ruler of mortals alone, but as keeper of a greater bond. Her nights were filled with dreams of voices that called from beneath the deep, voices both tender and vast. She woke often with her heart racing, the taste of salt upon her lips, though no sea was near. Still she kept her wonder hidden, for a queen must wear composure, never showing the depth of her longing. Her people saw her as a beacon of strength, unaware that she carried a secret dialogue with the sea. But the truth grew harder to hide, for the more she listened, the more she felt the ocean listening back. It was no longer only reverence nor gratitude, but something warmer, something that set her heart alight, as if each wave carried a promise, as if the sea itself reached toward her with gentle hands. The queen, mortal though she was, felt herself part of something eternal, something both comforting and dangerous. And though she told no one, though she kept her wonder locked behind calm words, Poseidon knew every thought. For from his hidden throne, he listened, his presence woven into every dream, every prayer, every breath of tide. Thus her secret grew, a flame no crown could extinguish, a longing that bound her heart to the endless sea. One evening, the queen stood upon the balcony of her palace, the sea shimmering like silver under the moon. The night was calm, the air gentle, but her heart stirred as though it awaited something unseen, something vast. The shell she often held lay in her hands, glowing faintly, its surface cool, as if alive with quiet breath. She lifted it to her ear, expecting silence, yet heard a low hum, like the heartbeat of the ocean itself. Startled, she lowered it, but the sound lingered, deep and steady, echoing inside her chest like a second pulse. Her eyes widened, not in fear, but in wonder, for she knew at once the sea was no longer distant. It was near, closer than the tide, closer than the wind, as if it reached to touch her very soul. She leaned against the railing, whispering words not meant for court or council, but for the endless waters below. If you hear me, then know this. I seek not power, not glory, but peace for my people and my heart. Her words carried over the waves, fragile as breath, yet heavy with sincerity, born from the depths of longing. For a moment, silence held, the sea still, the air waiting, until the waves answered with a soft, rising swell. The foam glittered in moonlight, a shimmer of silver, and she felt as though the ocean itself had bowed. She pressed the shell to her chest, warmth blooming where it touched, a comfort unlike any mortal gift. The queen knew then that she was not imagining, that her prayers were not cast into silence, but received. And somewhere deep beneath, in coral palaces and halls of pearl, Poseidon heard, and his heart stirred. He had watched countless mortals, kings and warriors, proud and vain, seeking favor for themselves alone. But this queen was different. Her spirit shining not with ambition, but with selfless devotion, unshaken by pride. Her voice reached him like music, soft yet clear, carrying the truth of her soul across the veil of worlds. He rose from his throne, his trident gleaming, his eyes fixed upon the mortal shore that drew him near. From the depths, he sent a whisper, carried not in words, but in feeling, a warmth across the tide. The queen felt it, sudden yet gentle, like hands of water cradling her, like a vow spoken without sound. Her breath caught, and though no figure stood before her, she knew she was no longer alone in the night. She whispered again, trembling, "Who are you? Who listens? Who answers? Who binds the sea to my heart?" The waves surged softly against the shore, their rhythm steady, and the air grew rich with unseen presence. Though the sea gave no name, she felt its truth, its eternity, its strength, pressing close yet tender. Her pulse quickened, and she turned her face to the horizon, her eyes glistening with awe and hidden hope. For the first time, she believed her bond was not only devotion, but a bridge between two worlds. She stood there long into the night, whispering her thoughts, her fears, her dreams, and the sea listened. Not once did it falter, not once did it turn away, as though every word was treasured, carried deep below. When dawn touched the sky, she still held the shell close, her heart lighter, yet bound in threads unseen. Her servants found her serene, radiant, her eyes brighter, as though she had walked with stars in her sleep. They asked her nothing, for the queen's silence was gentle yet firm, a secret she would not betray. but in her heart, she knew the truth. Her life had shifted, her spirit no longer hers alone. The ocean had heard her, and she had heard it. And in that exchange, something eternal had begun. The days that followed were filled with quiet signs, subtle yet impossible to ignore, woven into the rhythm of her life. The waves grew gentler near her shores, as if guarding her kingdom, as if answering her prayers before she spoke. Fishermen returned with bountiful catches, their nets heavy, their hearts grateful, unaware of the unseen blessing bestowed. Storms that once threatened now softened, clouds dispersing before they struck, leaving only gentle rain to bless the land. The people rejoiced, believing fortune favored them. But the queen knew these were not accidents, but careful gifts. Each night, she held the shell, listening to its hum, speaking her thoughts as though to a trusted companion. Her words carried no demand, no command, only gratitude, hope, and dreams she had never shared aloud before. She confessed her fears of failing her people, her loneliness behind the crown, her longing for something beyond duty. And always, the sea listened, answering in tides, in moonlit shimmer, in warmth that lingered upon her skin. Poseidon, beneath his palace of pearl and coral, found himself drawn ever closer, compelled by her quiet strength. He was a god of storms, of power and fury. Yet before her voice, he felt gentleness rise within him. It was not conquest he sought, nor worship, but the rare purity of a mortal heart unclouded by pride. The queen, though unaware of his form, sensed him, felt his presence steady as tide, tender as whispered wind. Her dreams deepened, filled with visions of the sea, halls of light beneath the waves, shadows moving with grace. She walked among corals that glowed like stars, her hands brushing an unseen guide who led her through wonder. She woke with her heart racing, unsure if it was dream, vision, or the god himself drawing her near. At court, her ministers noticed her radiance, the calm in her eyes, the strength in her voice unshaken. They whispered among themselves, believing the gods favored her. Yet they did not know how true their whispers were. One evening, as twilight painted the sea in gold, the queen descended alone to the shore, the shell in hand. She stood barefoot in the surf, her robe heavy with salt water, her crown left behind upon the palace throne. Closing her eyes, she whispered softly, "If you are truly there, then know I do not fear you." Her voice trembled, yet her heart was steady, her words sincere, carrying trust across the tide with every breath. The water rose gently around her, wrapping her in cool embrace, as if answering her courage with tender approval. And within the waves, she heard him, not in sound, but in the rush of tide, in the stillness after. It was a presence vast and eternal, yet it pressed close, as though bending down to meet her where she stood. She whispered again, "I am only mortal, yet I feel you near. Tell me, why do you listen to me?" The sea shimmered, the horizon glowing brighter, and though no words came, the silence carried an answer. "Because you are true." The queen opened her eyes, tears shining, not of sorrow but of awe, for she felt chosen, not conquered. For the first time, she allowed herself to smile, not as ruler, not as queen, but as a woman. That night, she returned to her chamber, the shell glowing brighter, as if it had absorbed the sea's reply. She pressed it close and whispered, "If you will walk with me, I will walk with you, in trust." Poseidon, far below, felt her vow, and for the first time in ages, a god's heart stirred with joy. Thus began not only a bond of devotion, but the first threads of a story that would change both worlds. The queen's days unfolded with new light. though she spoke to no one of the bond growing deep within her soul. Her people saw blessings in calm seas and rich harvests, never knowing these gifts were whispers of Poseidon's unseen hand. She moved among them with grace, her smile gentle, her eyes carrying a glow as if touched by stars. Children ran to her in the market, offering flowers and seashells, and she knelt to accept them with warmth. To the people, she was their heart, their guide. But to the sea, she was something far more rare. At night, when silence draped the land, she walked alone to the shore, barefoot upon sand cooled by tide. The shell glowed faintly in her hand, its hum steady, its presence constant, like the pulse of a living bond. She whispered dreams into the wind, and always the waves answered, not with words, but with tender embrace. Her prayers grew less formal, more personal, as if she spoke not to a god, but to a friend unseen. Poseidon listened, moved by her honesty, her courage, her quiet faith that needed no temple, no altar, no song. He had been worshipped for ages with sacrifice and fear, yet never with such unguarded trust, so purely offered. He lingered in her presence, though unseen, weaving tides around her steps, guiding her dreams deeper into his world. One night, as the moon burned bright and silver, she dreamt again. Yet the dream felt sharper, more vivid, more real. She found herself standing upon a shore of crystal sand, the sea before her glowing with light like liquid stars. A voice, vast yet gentle, filled her mind, not heard with ears, but with the depth of her heart. "You are not alone," it said, a promise carried on the waves that bent close to kiss the shore at her feet. Her breath caught, and though she saw no form, she knew the voice belonged to the god she had felt. Poseidon, lord of oceans, breaker of storms, had chosen at last to let his presence touch her dreaming soul. The queen bowed her head, not in fear, but in reverence, her hands clasped at her chest, heart trembling with awe. "I am no goddess," she whispered. "I have no power but love for my people. Why do you come to me?" The tide surged, light rising like a crown upon the sea, and the voice replied, "Because you are true." Her eyes filled with tears, for the words struck deep, unlocking chambers of her heart she had long kept hidden. She reached her hand forward, as though to touch the glow, though she knew it lay far beyond her reach. The water shimmered, forming a path of light across the sea. But as she stepped forward, the dream dissolved. She awoke in her chamber, breath unsteady, the shell warm in her hands, glowing brighter than ever before. The queen pressed it to her heart, whispering, "If this is dream or truth, I will not turn away." From the depths, Poseidon smiled, for her vow was clear, her spirit bound ever closer to the tide. The days that followed deepened their bond, though none in her realm could see the threads woven between them. She spoke her heart. He answered in silence, in tide, in calm seas that wrapped her land in safety. Each night her dreams drew her nearer, showing glimpses of coral hulls and voices that sang like choirs of whales. And with each dream, her longing grew, not for power nor worship, but for the presence she felt in the sea. She was still a queen, bound by crown and people, but within her heart she knew she was also chosen. Chosen not by chance, nor by conquest, but by a god who saw in her what he had not seen for ages. Thus, her nights became a dance of dreams and tide, her days a balance of duty and hidden devotion. And as she walked among her people, radiant and strong, the sea watched, waiting for the day their worlds would meet. The queen's heart carried a secret, one she dared not share. for no mortal could truly understand her hidden bond. She ruled with steady hands, guiding her people through seasons of peace. Yet her nights belonged to the sea. The dreams grew stronger, richer, layered with color and music that mortal eyes and ears could not comprehend. She walked halls of coral lit by pearls, where fish shimmered like jewels and currents whispered ancient songs. Each vision showed her pieces of Poseidon's realm, as if the sea itself invited her to learn its truths. She did not wake afraid, but filled with wonder, longing, and questions she could never ask aloud. Her counselors spoke of trade, harvests, and alliances, yet her mind often wandered back to the voice of the tide. She kept the shell near, hidden in silks, glowing faintly when the waves grew restless or storms drew near. Her people called it luck, praising the queen for seasons without famine or flood, never knowing the truth of it. One evening, she returned to the shore where she had first found the shell, the horizon painted in red gold. The waves curled around her ankles, playful, insistent, like a greeting from a friend too vast to appear. She closed her eyes, whispering, "If you hear me, know that I do not fear you. I wish only to understand." The tide swelled, and though the sea did not part, her heart filled with a warmth that silenced her doubts. The god of oceans was listening, not with demands, not with anger, but with a patience few deities had known. Poseidon watched her as he had watched the rising of mountains and the sinking of islands. Yet she was different. No temple, no priest, no offering bound them, only trust, spoken not in ritual, but in the language of truth. He had known mortals who begged for power, who cried for victory, who trembled before his storms and depths. But she did not ask for crowns beyond her own, nor treasures, nor fame, only peace for her people. Her simplicity, her quiet devotion, was a rarity, like clear water in a turbulent sea, calm yet powerful. That night, as sleep claimed her, the queen dreamt again, but this time she was not alone in the vision. She stood in a cavern of sapphire light, waves suspended like glass, and before her, a figure began to form. Tall as the sea itself, draped in flowing blue, eyes deep as storms, Poseidon revealed himself to her at last. The queen did not fall to her knees, nor tremble, but lifted her gaze with reverence and unshaken calm. "My lord of the seas," she whispered, her voice steady, "you honor me with presence beyond any mortal measure." Poseidon's voice rolled like thunder softened by rain. "You call me not as God, but as one you trust." Her lips curved into the smallest smile. "I have no temple for you, only my truth. And truth is all I have." The god regarded her, and in that silence, the weight of oceans passed between them, vast yet strangely tender. "You are a queen among mortals," Poseidon said, "yet you stand without fear before the tide of eternity." The queen lowered her eyes, not in weakness, but in thought. A crown means little if the people beneath it suffer. His hand lifted, and the cavern shifted, filling with images of waves carrying ships, storms breaking into calm. "Your spirit," he said, "is bound to the sea more deeply than you know. That is why I come." Her breath caught, but she held her ground, her fingers clutching the glowing shell against her heart. "If the sea has chosen me," she whispered, "then I will not turn away. But I am still of the land." Poseidon's eyes softened, a storm gentled by sunlight. "And still, you hear the song of the ocean more clearly than most." In that moment, the cavern dissolved, and she awoke once more in her chamber, the shell blazing with light. The queen pressed it to her lips, whispering into the dark, "I will not hide from you. Not anymore." and from the depths, Poseidon listened, the bond between god and mortal tightening like a tide that would not break. The queen's heart was no longer her own, for it beat with two rhythms, one of land and one of sea. She moved through her palace as if caught between two worlds, her crown gleaming, yet her spirit pulled to the tides. The shell never left her side, its glow softer by day, brighter by night, as though it pulsed with Poseidon's breath. Her dreams carried her further each time, showing not only his realm, but his presence, vast yet intimately near. She began to sense him even when awake, in the hush of waves, in the whisper of wind across her skin. At council, when disputes rose, she spoke with clarity, her words calm as still waters, decisive as the tide. Her people marveled, saying their queen carried wisdom beyond mortal years, touched perhaps by the gods themselves. But she knew it was no gift of pride, only the unseen guidance of a voice that steadied her spirit. One evening, while she walked the shoreline, the sea surged higher, curling foam around her feet in playful insistence. The horizon shimmered, and for a moment, she thought she saw a figure rising from waves, tall and radiant. But the vision faded, leaving only a hush that sent her heart racing, her hand pressed against the glowing shell. That night, Poseidon's voice filled her dreams once more, but now with words heavier, deeper, carved in ocean's weight. "You stand at a threshold," he said, his tone neither command nor plea, but a truth laid bare across eternity. The sea has chosen you, yet the land binds you. You must know both paths cannot remain forever unchanged. The queen felt her breath falter, yet she lifted her chin, for she would not shrink before such divine truth. "I am sworn to my people," she answered softly, her voice trembling yet steady. "They are my crown, my duty." The god regarded her, eyes storm deep, then gentled like waves lapping sand. "And still, you are mine in spirit." Her chest ached, for in those words she heard not possession, but recognition, as though he named what already was. "I do not seek to take you from them," Poseidon said, his voice softer now. "But tides cannot be stilled forever." She stood silent, torn, knowing the weight of kingdoms pressed upon her. Yet her soul longed for his presence. The dream dissolved, but the question lingered, haunting her steps, echoing in the halls of her palace by the sea. By day she gave smiles, decrees, and counsel. Yet by night she walked alone, whispering into winds she could not hold. Her heart wrestled between two loves, one of duty, of land, of people, and one of tide, of God, of eternity. Her closest maid noticed shadows beneath her queen's eyes, yet dared not ask, for some secrets were too sacred. The people saw only blessings, the seas calm, the harvests plentiful, their queen radiant as morning light on water. But within, she bore the pull of two worlds, each demanding, each worthy, each impossible to abandon. One twilight, she lifted the shell and pressed it to her lips, whispering, "If I am yours, guide me rightly." The waves answered, swelling high before retreating, leaving at her feet a single pearl glowing with inner fire. She held it close, a sign that the sea had heard, though its meaning was not yet clear to her heart. The queen bowed her head, tears brimming, not of fear but of awe, knowing she had been marked by destiny. And deep beneath the waves, Poseidon kept watch, patient as only gods can be, waiting for her choice to come. For though eternity was his, he knew her time was fleeting, fragile, precious, and the sea would not rush her. Thus began the silent tension, the delicate thread between land and sea, between crown and tide, between mortal and God. and with each passing day, the bond grew deeper, the choice nearer, the story of queen and ocean weaving toward fate. The queen rose each dawn with a smile for her people, but beneath her calm, her soul stirred with restless tide. Her kingdom thrived, safe under her reign, yet she knew blessings did not come from her hand alone. The sea gave and guarded, Poseidon's unseen will flowing through waves that broke gently upon her golden shores. Each night she returned to dreams where the ocean's halls unfolded in brilliance no mortal painter could capture. Pearls glowed like lanterns, corals stretched like cathedrals, and Poseidon's voice lingered like thunder softened by rain. In those visions, he did not command her, nor bind her, but walked beside her as equal, as chosen. Their words wove bridges across the chasm of God and mortal, forming a bond unspoken, delicate yet unbreakable. But with each dream, the truth pressed closer. Her two worlds could not remain apart forever. One twilight, as gulls wheeled above, her counselors spoke of marriage, urging her to secure the throne with an heir. The queen listened, her heart heavy, for she knew their plea came from love of the kingdom, not greed. Yet within her soul, she already bore a vow, whispered into seashell glow, shared with the god of tides. That night, as moonlight silvered her chambers, she knelt by the window, shell pressed close, and whispered her sorrow. Must I choose between duty and truth? Between land that needs me and the sea that calls me home? The waves outside stirred, crashing louder, as if the sea itself ached with her longing and quiet despair. Poseidon answered in her dream, his eyes vast, his voice steady. Your choice is not sacrifice, but becoming. She trembled, for his words carried both promise and burden, truth heavier than any crown she had worn. What am I to become? She whispered, her voice soft as foam on shore. His gaze gentled, storms fading into calm. You are bridge and bond, mortal and eternal, chosen by sea and land. Her heart raced, torn between joy and fear, for she felt both blessed and bound to a path unseen. Still, she did not waver. I will not abandon my people, she said firmly, nor betray the trust of their hearts. Poseidon's smile was faint, tender as tide's kiss. And that is why I chose you, Queen, who carries truth. The dream dissolved, leaving her with silence. Yet her chest ached with both hope and weight of destiny. In days that followed, storms gathered far on the horizon, restless winds carrying omens no one yet understood. The queen stood at her balcony, watching dark clouds churn, sensing more than weather in their heavy turning. She pressed the pearl to her lips, the one the waves had given, and whispered, "Guide me when the time comes." Her people sang her name in praise, calling her blessed. But within, she knew her path led deeper than throne. For destiny stirred like the sea itself, tides shifting, waiting, as Poseidon's presence loomed ever closer to her world. And though her crown still gleamed and her realm still thrived, the queen knew her life was no longer only hers. It belonged to both land and sea, to people and God, to love and choice, bound in currents of fate. The story of queen and ocean pressed forward, carrying her toward the moment when all would be revealed. The sea roared one final time, waves rising high, as if the ocean itself wished to speak its last truth. The queen stood tall on the cliffs, her crown gleaming faintly in the storm's dim light, her heart steady and sure. Her people gathered behind her, fearful yet trusting, their eyes filled with both worry and hope in her strength. The wind carried whispers of Poseidon's voice, deep and eternal, reminding her of the bond forged beyond mortal bounds. Do not fear, she whispered to her people, her voice strong though the storm threatened to swallow her words. you are not alone, for the sea does not rage against us. It protects, it remembers, it claims us whole. As lightning flashed, the waves rose higher, then softened, as though bowing before her courage and chosen destiny. From the depths, Poseidon's presence emerged, vast and unseen, his power felt in every drop of salt upon air. But his voice, when it came, was not thunder, but calm. You have chosen well, queen of both land and sea. The people trembled, for though they could not see him, they felt the ocean's might bending in gentle reverence. The queen stepped forward, pearl in her hand, lifted to the sky like a torch guiding sailors through endless night. In that moment, storm turned to calm. Clouds parting, moonlight spilling over waves, silver and pure as blessing. The sea grew quiet, not in retreat, but in harmony, as if the waters themselves vowed loyalty to her reign. Her people fell to their knees, relief flooding their hearts, for they understood she was chosen not only by crown, she was chosen by the ocean, by a god who had seen her truth and granted her strength beyond measure. Poseidon's voice lingered like a song in tide. Rule with love, and neither sea nor land shall forsake you. Tears shimmered in her eyes, not of sorrow but of wonder, for she now carried a destiny shared by two worlds. No longer torn between duty and love, she was both queen and bridge, mortal and eternal, bound to both realms. Her people rose, cheering her name, not as ruler only, but as protector blessed by waves and winds alike. The pearl glowed faintly, warm in her palm, its light pulsing softly, a reminder of promises that could not fade. She placed it near her heart, whispering, "Thank you, Lord of the sea, for trust, for guidance, for this path." The waves answered gently, lapping at the cliffs with tenderness, as though kissing her farewell, yet never leaving her. In the days that followed, peace reigned, harvests flourished, and the sea gifted fish in abundance to the shore. Sailors returned safely from voyages, whispering prayers of gratitude to the queen who held the ocean's favor. Legends spread of her bond with Poseidon, told in fireside songs, in lullabies, in tales carved upon temple walls. Some spoke of love, others of destiny. Yet all agreed she was more than queen, she was chosen by the sea. And though years passed, she often walked to the cliffs, pearl pressed close, listening to the whispers in the tide. Sometimes the waves brought laughter, soft as foam, and sometimes silence, yet always a presence that kept her whole. She never forgot the God who had seen her soul, who gave not chains, but freedom bound in trust and truth. And Poseidon, from his throne beneath coral halls, never forgot the mortal queen who carried his blessing forevermore. Thus ended the tale of the queen and the sea, a story not of conquest, but of love, choice, and harmony. Her legacy endured as eternal as tide, a reminder that the greatest power lies not in ruling, but in uniting. And so, when waves kiss the shore and storms calm into peace, her name is still carried on the wind. The mortal queen, beloved of land and sea, lives on in memory, her story flowing endlessly like the ocean itself.